When it comes to Dave the Diver, I'm admittedly conflicted. Obviously, my reviews are opinion pieces, but I always do my best to give games their proper due. In the case of Dave the Diver, objectively, I think it's nothing short of excellent. However, subjectively, it just wasn't for me. That doesn't mean I hated it, for the record. I enjoyed a lot of aspects of the game, but found myself feeling worn out and tired of it towards the end. The reason I'm prefacing this particular review this way is twofold. Firstly, if you're interested in the game, I don't mean to turn you away from it. I mostly just want to help people figure out if they're going to enjoy it or not. Secondly, if you have played this game and love it, I want to make it clear that I realize that most of my issues with the game are merely personal, and I'm not trying to make arguments against it. Dave the Diver has over 54,000 reviews on Steam with an overall rating of overwhelmingly positive, and I think it absolutely deserves that, despite my personal enjoyment of the game. That said, I'm still going to share my negative thoughts in hopes of helping other people decide on whether or not they want to dive in themselves. In Dave the Diver, you play as Dave. Duh. You dive into the blue hole, a mysterious body of water that seemingly holds every kind of sea life known to man. After collecting all kinds of fish and other things, you serve them up at your sushi restaurant. Along the way, new mysteries and challenges arrive, as well as a whole cast of crazy side characters who bring a lot of life and color to the world. Honestly, Dave the Diver is not easily categorized. On Steam, it's simply listed as a casual adventure RPG. After playing through it, however, I think it better suits the classification of a roguelike. Simply put, you dive, you sell what you catch, you upgrade your gear, and you dive again. Despite the main story and side missions, this process repeats and is ultimately the foundation of the game. If it's not obvious enough from what I've shown on the screen so far, this game absolutely radiates style and charm. While I think that the overall gameplay and environmental art is great, what I mean by animations are the cutscenes. I won't show too many for the sake of spoiling what I think is the best part of the game, but I'll show a few on screen as an example while I discuss them. Some of these animations made my jaw drop. Not only are they impressive, but there are also so many of these. They are unique, well crafted, and most importantly, fun. I can tell that whoever made these had an absolute field day with them. Furthermore, these animations play when you upgrade something such as a weapon or a recipe. Thankfully, these don't play every single time that you do, but are still used frequently. The fact that they're used in intervals and have such an array of unique animations helped it not get too stale too quickly. If, however, you do get bored of this over time, there is also a skip button, so you're not completely locked in. As for gameplay, Dave the Diver is somewhat of a buffet of different flavors. As mentioned before, there is the diving aspect, where you jump in and brave the depths in order to collect resources for your dishes and upgrades. There is also the restaurant side of things, where you manage recipes, your staff, and run the restaurant yourself by running orders of food to customers, pour drinks, and keep the wasabi stocked. On top of that, there are a slew of mini-games and side quests that essentially function in unique ways and help keep things fresh. As you progress, new characters are introduced that all have different objectives and goals for you to complete. There's someone who wants you to collect certain shells and starfish, a reporter that wants you to take pictures of the underwater world, and definitely not a Pokemon reference who definitely doesn't want you to catch them all. Along the way in Dave the Diver, you find different harpoon guns with different attributes and functions, charms that buff you in passive ways, and even elemental harpoon tips that boost your damage and give your hits the respective elemental ability. Depending on what elemental harpoon tip you have equipped, when you get a fish to the point of capture, a small quicktime event pops up. This ranges from button mashing, twirling your left controller stick, jamming the analog stick back and forth, etc. While I personally enjoy the little nuance of different flavor you have in capturing a sea creature, one of the biggest complaints I saw on the Steam page was specifically about this. I very rarely think about accessibility, but for people who have arthritis, it sounds like this game is unplayable. That said, from what I've read, it looks like they're working on a fix, which is excellent work from the developers. As I mentioned earlier, Dave the Diver feels much more like a roguelike than a casual fishing game. For instance, when you dive into the depths, you're basically on a timer. Your oxygen levels are constantly depleting, draining even quicker when you're boosting to swim faster. The oxygen levels also double as your health bar, so when you're hit by an aggressive sea creature, a chunk of it is taken away. As you can imagine, when the oxygen hits zero, your run ends right then and there. Not only is this failure a blow to the ego, but it also comes with a massive cost. When you run out of oxygen, you lose every single item you were carrying except for one thing. This little consolation prize is nice, but when you're carrying 20 to 30 things, it feels like a resounding, frustrating loss. That said, I think it's perfect. Obviously, you don't want to essentially die in your runs, so this punishment feels appropriate. At the same time, there are plenty of ways to refill your oxygen levels. If you're close to the surface, you can leave at any time, and there are even little beacon points where you can be extracted to the surface. Keeping in mind that certain fish, sharks, etc. make for higher priced dishes, Dave the Diver quickly becomes a balancing act of oxygen, carrying capacity, ammo, and more. I would catch myself analyzing this situation often, wondering if I could just go a little bit longer in order to efficiently get the most out of each dive. Time in general becomes a factor as well. Every day you can dive once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and in the evening you open up and run the restaurant. There's also another option to dive at night when the waters are filled with aggressive wildlife, but if you choose to do so, 1/3 of your restaurant's runtime is sacrificed. This isn't even taking into consideration the main objectives, side quests, and exploration that needs to take place in order to progress the game. Furthermore, there are VIPs that show up to your restaurant and you collect the ingredients for special dishes before their time is up, and there are also days where clients will pay higher prices for certain ingredients. With that in mind, we reach my first problem with Dave the Diver. As I previously said, these issues I have with the game are merely subjective, but I feel obligated to point them out for any potential buyers that may fall in line with my way of thinking. Dave the Diver feels like it has a real ADHD problem. It seemed that every single day, or even multiple times a day, characters would pop up giving me more side quests to do. While I normally love side quests and often praise having more to do than just the straightforward game, here the delivery and also the quality of missions miss the target for me. There is a constant barrage of someone showing up to talk out what needs to be done, so much in fact that it felt like it was a constant game of stop and go. Between people showing up, people calling, the numerous apps that all have different functions and goals, and even events I'd run into underwater, I at times felt like I wasn't in control. Some days I just wanted to dive, gather ingredients, make some money in the restaurant, and upgrade Dave's gear, only to start the next day and have multiple different characters tell me to do a plethora of things on different sides of the ocean. Furthermore, some of these things are timed events, so even if I didn't do them right then and there, or at least that day, I would fail them. While variety is the spice of life, in Dave the Diver the spice tasted a bit lacking for me. Upon watching the trailer, I was so excited for a game that was filled with minigames. I love little minigames with different types of playstyles that switch things up, but here they mostly felt a bit shallow. There are some minigame segments that just randomly pop up once and are never seen again. There are some minigames that appear more than once but are relatively easy to overcome and never progress further than what they were initially shown to be. Then there are sections of the game that are constant, but ultimately felt like they were just tacked on so that Dave the Diver could have them. For instance, there's a whole farm where you can grow rice and different crops for your dishes, but there's not a lot of depth here. You plant the seeds, water the crops, and harvest them. I'm not saying that I think the farm needs to basically be a mini farming game within Dave the Diver, but ultimately this farm began to feel much more like a chore as time went on. It was just another notification on my phone halting the natural flow of the gameplay. The main reason I wanted more from the minigames and side sections from Dave the Diver is because it would break up the monotony of just diving. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. I wouldn't go spend multiple hours on the farm, I would go for maybe 5 minutes at a time. Even the restaurant segments of the game were short, with the restaurant being open roughly about 2.5 minutes. In comparison, some of these dives could easily last up to 30 minutes, twice a day. That's nearly an hour of diving gameplay compared to 2.5 minutes of running the restaurant. Ultimately, if the diving part of the game doesn't seem that appealing to you, then be warned that it's about 80 to 90% of the gameplay. I can already feel the comments coming now about how the game is called Dave the Diver and not Dave and the plethora of in-depth minigames, and I totally get that. However, upon watching the trailer, I think that some people could get in their minds that there's a ton of extra things to do rather than just the diving segments. While there are an array of different experiences here, they are mostly short and shallow. It's a lot like having a massive buffet, but all the interesting choices have a single bite's worth of servings, and then there's just a massive bucket of egg fried rice with a funnel to shovel down your gullet. These last two cons I think are a bit more objective than my previous problems with Dave the Diver, so even if you're a massive fan of the game, you might agree with me. Firstly, I absolutely hate the fact that Dave can't aim his harpoon all around him. You can fire it left or right in a cone, but obviously with an environment that allows enemies to be around you in every direction, this makes combat feel a bit clunky. It becomes this dance of trying to dodge, but also having the shark or whatever line up with your firing range. In my opinion, it just doesn't make sense why Dave can't fire up or down when he can turn in any direction in the water. Secondly, and this one really got under my skin, is how often the characters or Dave himself feel the need to interrupt to explain even the simplest of things. For example, I'd swim into a cave, obviously filled with puzzles, for Dave to stop and say out loud to himself, "Oh, I should try solving these puzzles," or something along those lines. There would be an obvious solution and Dave would halt me and basically say the solution out loud. There would be a massive monster chasing me in a sequence and he would stop and say, "Oh, that's a giant monster, I need to get away." "Thanks, Dave. I think I got the idea from the context of the situation." In each of these scenarios, it felt like as soon as I got into the flow of things, I'd suddenly be stopped by Dave interjecting something completely obvious. While most of my complaints are obviously personal opinion, I still think that Dave the Diver is outstanding. There was a lot of ambition and love that was poured into this game. From the plethora of things to do and the stunning animations, you can tell that the developers had a specific vision for their game and accomplished just that. The hardest part of this review is the fact that I can clearly see the excellence and triumph that is Dave the Diver without it hitting the bullseye for me personally. Overall, it was a well-crafted, unique experience full of charm, but I don't see myself playing it again, at least for a very long time. As to whether or not it's the right game for you, well, that's entirely up to your personal preferences and taste, but hopefully I've helped you come to the conclusion on whether to dive in or not.